Okay, good morning everyone, and good morning Gal for being with us today as we are about to start our discussion on IP protection and data protection. This is one of the hottest topics for, I guess, every company in general, and specifically for companies that are dealing with collecting data, manipulating data, um, dealing with customers all over the world, but our focus today will be on the US market. So thank you so much for being with us. My name is Sharon Vanek. I'm the Executive Director of the California Israel Chamber of Commerce. We are a nonprofit organization based in Northern California with the purpose of supporting our ecosystem with different topics and different discussions. So for the purpose of today, for today's topics, we are going to have our first guest, which is Gal Tal Hochberg. He's the Group CTO of Team8. Thank you, Gal, for being with us. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Before we dive into the topic of data protection and IP, and I know you have a lot to say about that, we already talked about should we or shouldn't we even protect our IP in cybersecurity. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what exactly does Group CTO?
So a little bit about myself. My background is I was a programmer from a very young age. I started developing code around 6 years old. I wasn't very good, but I started young. I worked at Intel when I was in high school. I was in the Israeli intelligence and the military. I started two startups, one in AI and one in blockchain. And I also did cybersecurity consulting for large companies. And today I'm the group CTO for Team8. Team8 is, for people who don't know us, we're a venture fund who not only invests in companies, but actually helps create companies. And so we work with companies from the very earliest stages, sometimes bringing the idea in the team ourselves, and then investing. And we've been doing this for about 8 years, and we're pretty happy. My position at Team8 as Group CTO, as part of that venture creation process, we need to have theses about where the world is going. And a good chunk of my job is to think about those theses in the various areas that we cover in cybersecurity, also in fintech, in enterprise, what's going on right now and where is it going, speaking to executives in the world and with founders to see what they think, and having this view of what's happening in the world.
Thank you for that. So let's dive into cybersecurity market, right? And I would like to invite our guests, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll try to answer them as we go. So I was reading that the global cybersecurity market is estimated in about $200 billion US, and about a third of it is in the North American market. So obviously, and this is also part of our discussion, the US market is a very attractive one for companies, right, from all over the world, and obviously also for Israeli companies. It's just a no-brainer, right? So what I want to speak with you in the next few minutes is really about the US market and why is it so attractive, and what do we see in the US market that can be of interest to Israeli companies. So let's start with the topic of IP protection, and I know your view about should we or shouldn't we protect IP protection, and we do have some lawyers afterwards to talk about the legal process and how you protect your IP. But I'm just curious, do you think that there is a way for a cybersecurity company to help companies to protect their IP? Is there a technology that can be used to protect IP, or is it just a legal means?
So I think it goes to the question of, when you say protect IP, what do you mean, right? If when you say protect IP, you're talking about this view of, I have invented this algorithm or this system, and I want to protect the concept of how it works. That's something that actually is very hard to protect, both, in my opinion, both from a technical and from a legal means, because getting patents and stuff like that is very difficult for software, depending on the nuance. And even when you get it, it can be trivially modified sometimes and to bypass the patent. I think the way to think about protecting, abstract sort of conceptual IP in that sense is more about, sort of creating risk for somebody who's going to try to compete with you. So if you can protect not against it being stolen, but against somebody being comfortable to use it because they'll be, if it's a big company, they'll be afraid they might buy it from you instead because they don't want to run the risk. So it's more of a risk thing. There are many ways to protect your IP in the general sense. Your customer lists are a sort of IP. Your customer data is a sort of IP. And the entire field of cybersecurity, or what's called information security, is focused around making sure that your information stays secure, and in a sense that's protecting your IP. The big technical discussion of what you can do, but in general, that I will say, in my personal opinion, and I'm happy to hear what the lawyers say afterwards, the importance of legal IP protection, as in patents, in most software companies isn't very big today. It's hard to enforce, it's hard to get. Investors like it, but not as much as they used to. And so that's something that has become less strategic than it used to be in the past.
I understand. Thank you for that. Let's talk about data protection. There is a lot of data in the companies. Some of it is internal data, some of it is external data that we collect. From what you see in the market, what is the biggest concern of clients these days?
So I'll say today, because of the advent of ransomware, people are a lot afraid about their data being encrypted. So not necessarily stolen, but rather that they themselves will not have access to it. And that's the world of ransomware, where the attackers will make it so that the data can't be accessed by the person who owns it, and then, or the person who's holding it, and that'll be problematic for their business. So that's one way they're afraid. Another way is that due to the changing regulatory landscape, things like GDPR and other regulations, it is now highly costly to have a data breach, because the regulator might go after you and fine you a very large fines. I think I don't know, there's lawyers here they can say, but I think the upper limits are percentages of your revenue. So it's like, it's very, very high fines. You could be fined hundreds of millions of dollars, I think even billions technically. And there's this interesting thing, people used to say that data is oil. And I don't know if anybody's ever, so people used to say in the internet that data is oil. It lets you, optimize your marketing and like build your business in the right way. Many people didn't think about the fact that, having oil is also toxic. And then having a bunch of oil around can lead to a big fire. And data is kind of like that. If you lose a lot of customer data, you can get very big fines. And we're seeing some companies shifting to the other direction and saying, I don't want any customer data. I don't want to have access to it because I'm afraid of the risk to my company, right? And so many companies are asking themselves, how can I be compliant and how can I make sure that it doesn't leak so I don't get these fines? This is around private customer data, right? So names, medical information. This isn't like revenue stuff. This is personal information, privacy.
Right, and just to be aligned with your last sentence, I read that there is a growing trend of data protection as a service, specifically after COVID, that a lot of companies were forced to quickly adapt more technologies, like people work remotely, IoT, payments, and so on and so forth. Do you think that there is an advantage of Israeli companies in this area of data protection as a service? And I'm just curious if any of the Team8 portfolio is moving through this direction.
So, I'm on mute. No. So I think that, so Israeli companies, data protection as a service is a good match for Israeli companies for two reasons, and a mediocre match for a third reason. So the two good reasons is that, one, data security is mostly a cyber thing. play. So it's about security, it's about how attackers can access, and Israelis are the best in the world of thinking like attackers. We at Teammate think that we're part of that. I'm sorry, the Zoom disconnected for me.
We can hear you.
All right, I'm back. All right, so
Yes.
It's a cybersecurity thing, and there's cybersecurity is always, Israelis are good at that. They can think like attackers. The second thing is that it's about data. And Israel, given our experience in the army and our exposure to multinationals, we can think about data in the right way. And that's something that we'll be the best at finding what data you have in the cleverest way and like analyzing it and thinking about how to attack it. The place where Israeli companies need to have are going uphill is that data protection is is a big part of how the organization works, right? So many organizations run on data of some kind, and when you add data security, you are affecting the business process. And Israelis are not the best at understanding, U.S. data processes and large companies, because we don't have many companies like that here, and not many of us have worked in them. Especially not in the ones that are data heavy, right? So how many people in Israel have worked at, Walmart or at a pharmaceutical company? It must have some a little bit better, but like Walmart or a big insurance company or a big bank, we don't understand those businesses as well as we understand tech businesses. And so I think the place where there's a challenge is that we need to take our tech knowledge and our data knowledge and then convert it to ask ourselves, how does this really fit in within the business process of a large US corporation that's, consumer data heavy? And that's something that we're all going to, there's about 7 Israeli companies or 8 in this space, so they're going to learn it.
Do you have any practical advice to Israeli companies? As you said, that we don't understand because we don't have that magnitude here. I know in Teammate you have a lot of discussions with those big companies. You have good relationship with CISOs in those in companies like Walmart, for example, and others. What do you hear from them? I mean, do you have any really practical advice to the Israeli companies?
Yeah. So we actually do have a portfolio company in the space called Dig Security. They just recently raised a 30-something million A round. So congratulations to them.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. We're especially in this current, financial climate, we think it's very nice. So yes, so I think something to understand is that at the end of the day, the security risk is a little bit abstract. People are afraid of it, but the person who's in charge of the security risk isn't the person who's in charge of the business process. And if you don't build it in a way that the business will like it and will be able to work with it, you'll have a hard time. And so what I suggest, and it's something that we do, right, is go to talk to executives. And you said CISOs, talk to CISOs, but also talk to CIOs, talk to BI teams, talk to customer success teams, customer representative teams, and understand really how this security tool is going to affect the end user. Because if the end user, if you install a security tool, data security tool, and now sales can't do their work, it's going to be a very short-lived installation. So understand how they work, to understand whether you can empower them in some ways, or at least make their lives not super bad. It means adding features which we don't necessarily think of, for example, ask for exception, right? There's different things you can add which helps people's lives be better when they're on the side of the tool that's supposed to get the access to the data, not to secure it.
Thank you. I have another question for you, more general about Teammate and your work. We all read, I think it was last week, there was an announcement on a new activity, major activity in health innovation, and we know fintech has been a while with Ronen and Sarit and some others in Teammate. Are you looking at all of those industries from the cyber perspective? Can you tell us, share with us a little bit about what's going on with Teammate these days?
Yeah. So yes and no, or no and yes, I'll say. We are not primarily looking at them from the cyber perspective. So people tend to know Teammate for its cyber activities. But if you look at our fintech fund, a fintech vehicle, it's run by world-class fintech professionals. So Rakefet Rizk who used to be the CEO of Bank Leumi. We have Ronen Assia, who was the co-founder of eToro. We have Yuval Tal, who founded Borderfree and Payoneer. So some of the most successful fintech organizations, and they're looking at fintech from a fintech perspective. Do we empower that with cyber? Yeah, we do cyber stuff there as well, and there's collaboration. But of the 3 companies that we've done in fintech so far, for example, none of them are cyber oriented. The 4th one, the secret one we're working on right now, might be cyber oriented, and we're happy about it. In the healthcare space, yes, we have Asaf Maspari, who was a partner, who was a cyber oriented person. But Kinneret and Demetrius and all the other guys, they're healthcare oriented. They're from NASDAQ traded biotech companies. They're from running Medicare, and so it's more about the digital health than about the cyber. Yes, we do think that there's potential for digital health and cyber together. And then the way that we used to think about it is, if it's a mostly cyber company selling to mostly CISOs that has a digital health aspect, it's more of a cyber company than a digital health company. If it's a company that sells to doctors and hospitals and insurers and has a cyber aspect, it's more of a digital health company. And so we're happy to do the synergies, but it's not something that limits us when we look at both sides. It's always fun when we get to do things together, though.
It's going to be very exciting to see how Team 8 is developing new areas and not just the in the cyberspace. And you just mentioned the synergy between obviously the different industries and how we need cybersecurity to protect them. And we are going to hear later on from Erez Luz, who is the CTO of MD Clone, about privacy and how they work in that this junction between cybersecurity and the health industry. So this is really interesting to learn more about it. Just any final advice from you to our audience in terms of the US market, what they should pay attention to? You guys have a lot of experience.
Yeah. What should you pay attention to? Listen, so if you're not operating in the US market today, what I can say is the nice thing about the US market is that you can enter it. It's not super hard to get into it. So if you compare the US market to the French market or the Japanese market, which is very hard, you can go to the US and meet people and start working around and figuring how it works and selling to people. Americans are very collaborative and they're looking for great solutions. And Israel is a good place to be coming from, especially in cybersecurity, is there's a brand to Israel. On the flip side of that, Americans, are different in the way that they interact than Israelis. And for example, marketing is very important in a way that, we are not necessarily used to. Israel is not a very high, strong marketing culture. The US is. The type of relationships that they have, between vendor and customer are different. And so it takes a while to understand, to get Americans. And it's what you need to do is you need to spend time there and speak to people who have done it and sort of understand the dynamic. The good news is that we've been doing it a lot here in Israel, not just Team 8, and there's a lot to learn from, and you should be able to do it. So that's great. And for cybersecurity, it's a big market, so you should be able to get it nicely.
Thank you for that. And really last question. We read recently about the cases of CISOs' roles and their responsibilities, and we talk about, and we will hear later on about how vulnerable the company is and who is in charge. And we have a bunch of lawyers today on the session. What do you hear from CISOs about the tightening of regulations and where they are, sitting in the middle between executives in the companies, the legal aspects, the clients, and so on. So, is this an opportunity for companies in the cyberspace to tell them, okay, we are here to help you, protect your clients, protect the system, and all of that? Gal? Gal, I'm not so sure if you can hear me. You are frozen on my end.
Sorry, the internet here today has been not great. Can you
Oh,
hear me
I'm
now?
sorry about that.
No, I'm sorry about that. So, you were asking about the CISO and the risk there, right? And the change in the
Right,
position.
right. And again, is this an opportunity for some new ideas to maybe introduce, either in terms of marketing and approaching them, or from a technology standpoint?
So, I'll say this. For CISOs, there was a recent Joe Sullivan case, which was a change in how CISO's personal risk in the position. I don't think there's a technical opportunity there. I'll say there's a lot of stress from the CISOs because holding a CISO personally liable for something is scary, right? Because you work at a company, you expect the company to protect you, and here the company did not protect Joe Sullivan. It's also worth saying that in Joe Sullivan's case, there's a few different factors that were making the case sort of special. Number one, the case was around consumer data. So it wasn't about the hackers hacking Uber, it was about the hackers getting personal information. So when you're a security professional and it's a case where the criminals, the hackers, have stolen private data of consumers, which makes it what they've done like a felony, like a crime in the name of the government, don't hide it from the government because your company told you to, right? You have to talk to your own lawyers because, like, if it's something like that. So that's one. It's worth saying also, Joe Sullivan was the deputy general counsel of Uber while he was CISO, and that's very rare. So when you are a CISO, you should set up, processes for deciding disclosure which are documented, and that will put you in less of a position where people say it's you. And in general, the things that they did there were kind of creative from a legal like deciding how to do it was kind of creative. I'll say, I don't think this is opening opportunities yet that I can see from a technical perspective. It's making CISOs just more scared. I think it's a great business for lawyers who represent CISOs. So that's what we're going to see more of. But it's very legal and organizational and less technical. In general, I can say, the shifting position of the CISOs are having to become more business oriented. So in the past, CISOs were very technical and only technical. And while some still are, many more are starting to have to deal with business questions, because at the end of the day, cybersecurity is a risk part of the business, and communicating risk in a way that the CEO, the board can understand is something that CISOs need to be able to do. And there's a gap in tooling there. And we're going to see, I think, tools becoming smarter and more able to communicate with more context to help CISOs make decisions. A teammate did a company in that space, and we sold it. And I think that's something we're going to see more of. On the opposite side of that, I'll say, selling, like, you can sell to CISOs, but given what we just talked about, how CISOs have to be more business oriented, the actual practitioners in many organizations are no longer necessarily the CISOs, but maybe their deputies or people under that. And if you want to sell cybersecurity tools, you should talk not just to CISOs, but to the people who work under them, who are in charge of the day-to-day work, because CISOs have other things that they need to do. And that's a shift, right? As organizations get bigger, that's something that happened. And it's something to keep in mind when you're selling.
Thank you so much, Gal, for your insights this morning. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to speak with you and learn more from you about the US market and what companies can do in order to help other companies to feel more secure about their activities and about their data and so on and so forth. We have to quickly move to our next session, so really thank you for your time. And I want to welcome our next panelist. We have Ani Degani and Kfir Luzzato and Yotam Prakal. If you can all share with us, just open your cameras and join us for the next session. If you can, let me just make sure that your cameras can be on. Here you are. Thank you so much. Okay, hi Annie, good morning. Kfir and Yotam, if you can share, if you can open your cameras. Hi Yotam, Kfir, are you also able to share your camera? Just open your camera so we can see you.
In a second.
Of course.
Here I am.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us for the next session. We heard from Gal some ideas about IP protection and shouldn't we protect our IP from a legal standpoint. I would like to welcome Ani Degani. She's the Director of Business Development for FinSec Innovation Lab in Beersheba. Thank you, Ani. I'll hand you over the mic, and if you can introduce your panelists, and I'll just mute myself. I just want to remind our audience, if you have any questions, please send them in the chat box. Annie, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Thank you for having me here, and hello, everybody. It's great being with you this morning. I'm Ani Degani. I'm the head of business development at the FinSec Innovation Lab by MasterCard and NLX. The FinSec Innovation Lab operates under a tender of the Israeli government and managed by the Israel Innovation Authority, IIA, Rashut HaChadshanut, the Ministry of Finance, and the Israel National Cyber Directorate, which is INCD or Marach HaCyber. Our main purpose is to work with startups in the fields of fintech and cybersecurity and assist them with a technological and business proof of concept. We provide our startups with access to subject matter experts, whether from our shareholders and our local and global network. We provide them access to technological infrastructure, data, business insights, go-to-market strategy, and many more in order to assist our startups to grow and expand and become successful companies. And of course, through our program, we also provide access to an IA grant. Now, we all know that intellectual property, IP, is the main asset of almost every company. But while big companies have their mechanisms running, a startup needs to build them in parallel to doing almost anything else. So today, we want to focus exactly on that and speak about what a startup should do in order to protect its IP for the long run, from both the technology and the legal standpoints. So I have with me Kfir Lutzato, President of Lutzato Group, and Yotam Perkal, Director of Vulnerability Research at Rezilion. So please, if you can take a few minutes to introduce yourselves and your companies. Kfir?
Yes, well, good morning, first of all. The Lutzato Group is a 153 years young establishment, actually established by my great-grandfather in Italy, of all places. And what we do is we do all kinds of things around IP. In our group, we have, among other things, a patent law firm that assists multinationals as well as startup companies. And of course, in the field that we are discussing, in cyber security and related fields, there's a lot of activity here. And we have seen many startups, both succeeding and thriving, and also tanking because they didn't do the right things at the time. So it's a topic that is very important for us. And we think that educating all kinds of companies, by the way, not only startups, also well-established companies sometimes need education in the field, but particularly startups, it's very important.
Okay, thank you, Kfir. Yotam?
Hi, yeah, so I'm Yotam from Rezilion. Rezilion is a software attack surface management platform, and by that I basically mean we help organizations manage their attack surface, and we do that by firstly providing visibility into what they have in their environment and where. So we generate like a full software bill of material or an SBOM, so that organization can know exactly what software components they have in their environment. Then we map that information into vulnerabilities. So if they have vulnerable packages, then they know where they have them. And then we augment that with, we perform memory analysis or runtime analysis, and we augment that with what's actually running in their environment. So let's say that they had 10,000 vulnerabilities, and in large organizations, the numbers are more like millions. Then we can help them prioritize and focus on the vulnerabilities that are actually linked to components that are running, that are used, and hence exploitable. And then we see a reduction of around 85% vulnerabilities that are not really exploitable. So that allows them to focus their efforts on vulnerabilities that are actually affecting their attack surface. And then for the remaining, let's say 15%, we help them with the remediation, mitigation, patching efforts, etc., with various integrations. That's in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you. So let's dive in a little. Kfir, I'd like to have, you work a lot with, as you said, protecting IP. So when is the right time for a developer to start thinking about patent protection?
Oh, the 2 minutes after they had an idea, because the field is so crowded and so complicated that we see many developers working, putting efforts, money, and time into things that will go nowhere because you don't have what we call freedom to operate. The field is dominated by a number of very strong companies that develop and have a very good understanding of IP. And so when you start your project, most people don't have a clue of what's going on in the IP field, and they come up with this wonderful idea. They forget that elsewhere in the world, there are some other people who have the same wonderful ideas all the time, and maybe they had it before them. But there is also an additional problem attached to this, because as you may know, when we file a patent application, it remains secret for 18 months. So, and the field, the cyber field is very dynamic. So we may have an idea now that someone else had 6 months ago and file a patent application, and we don't know, we cannot know. As opposed to other fields where we would look at patent application published or patent issued, in this field we need to look a little deeper. We need to look at the company to see in which direction the companies that deal in the same field, in which direction they are going, and try to come up with an idea of we know what the direction is. Is there a chance that they hit the same idea that we did, and what are we going to do about it? It's fairly complicated.
You mean the startup itself, or the developer that comes with a new idea, and then you don't only look at the idea itself, but at the entire vision or where the company is heading to?
Not only the company, of course, that we should do that, but when we advise someone on what to do with this idea, we need to have, first of all, to generate a landscape of what the rest of the world is doing. And okay. Because of what I explained before, most often we are not able to see the patent applications that were filed by other companies. So we need to kind of come up with ideas and think, okay, we see what they did in this field. We see patent applications they filed. We see other things that they did. So there is a good chance that you are going in this direction, and we must take that into account when we want to protect what you are developing. So it's much more complicated than, I don't know, if you go into the mechanical field, where you would look at the patents, you know exactly what the others are doing. In this case, you must just guess in many cases what the others are doing on the basis of traces that they left in the field. So that's why is a much more complicated field here to work in, and it requires a lot more thought and investment of time and thought. So
tell us a little bit about the process. So what do you do, or what kind of guarantee does a startup have in the field of cyber when they start developing their product?
Oh, well, there's no guarantee in IP. The only guarantee is you're going to have a hard time and spend a lot of money. And if you do that right, you may hit the jackpot and get, inventions that will bring you a lot of money in return. And there are quite a number of examples of that in Israel. We've seen that. One example that I can mention is you may know the company Trusteer that was acquired by Microsoft for about $900 and something million. First time I saw them, there was a couple of guys in jeans with an idea, but they had the vision to invest in IP and protect what they were doing, and they were doing a lot of things. And in the end, it paid off. What we do, we look at them, we look at other companies that are doing things similar, that are working in the same field as they do, and then we try to see what kind of traces we can find, what kind of hints as to the direction in which. Let's say that we find 2 or 3 companies working in the same area, and then we want to try to guess based on what is available out there, based on what is published, which is very often not much. You need to try to guess the direction in which they're going and try to work with the company you're advising to jump ahead of other people and do certain types of IP protection at a certain time. It affects your entire program, the timeline in which you want to work. Sometimes you need to deal first with something that you thought you would deal probably much later because you found a hint that someone else is going in that direction. You want to jump ahead of them. There's so many variables in this.
Okay, thank you. And Yotam, more or less same question for you, but from your perspective, if you can spare a few words about what exactly vulnerability management is, and when is the best time for a startup or any business to start thinking about their vulnerability management.
Mute, sorry. Yeah, sure. So I think in this day and age where companies don't usually develop the products from scratch, there are a lot of use in open source and like ready to make packages or services, and that on the one hand allows organizations to move a lot quicker in their go-to-market strategy and focus on their core business logic. But on the other hand, it brings a lot of risks because basically you have code running in your environment that you're not responsible for. You didn't write it, and you use some kind of open source component or service or package for that specific functionality that, again, is not part of your core business logic, but is required for your product to operate. What we see in this reality is that the amount of vulnerabilities and obviously the amount of code being written and software being deployed is constantly on the rise. So you add those two factors together, and you get a huge amount of vulnerabilities that, again, not all of them are even controlled by the organization. So vulnerability management is basically a function that comes to help with addressing or coping with that inherent risk. Its aim is, again, to try to identify what are the vulnerable components in the environment, and then prioritize patching so that you won't leave your assets exposed to various forms of cyber attacks, which can obviously also lead to data breaches and compromise of IP. Yeah, so yeah, I think that's what vulnerability management is. And I think maybe I'll add one more word. What we see, because there's a huge variability in the maturity of organizations in terms of their cybersecurity programs, as well as the resources that they are able to basically issue in order to tackle that front. So there are a lot of organizations that have relatively mature cyber programs and actually have vulnerability management program and know exactly what is their attack surface. But there's a long tail of organizations that are smaller, medium-sized businesses or less technologically advanced from other domains, that often they don't even know what vulnerabilities they have in their environment and the amount of their exposure. So that there's like a spectrum, and at the end of the day, it's a lot about awareness, and from our perspective, again, and I think globally that's also a trend. We saw that with the Biden executive order that enforces basically every supplier to the US government to provide an SBOM, as I mentioned earlier, like a software bill of materials, so that organizations will know what software components they have in their environment. So when a case, for instance, like Log4Shell happens, and you need to understand whether you're vulnerable or not, then you can reference to that software bill of materials and know exactly if you have that in your environment and where.
So when is the right moment to start thinking about it?
So I guess same as a lot of other things, I would say as soon as possible.
Okay.
There are also open source tools that allow for scanning of vulnerabilities. But yeah, I would say as soon as possible. Again, the risks are out there. We recently did the research around we called it vintage vulnerabilities, which are vulnerabilities that are from that were discovered between 2010 and 2020. So some of them are more than a decade old, and all of the vulnerabilities that we focused on were what is called CISA known exploited vulnerabilities. So the CISA organization in the US issues a list of vulnerabilities that are known to be actively exploited in the wild. So we took that list, focused on that section of between 2010 and 2020, and we identified millions of basically publicly accessible assets, servers, devices that are susceptible to those vulnerabilities, even though that, as I said, some of them are more than a decade old. So that gives a sense of the extent of the gap in terms of vulnerability management. And as I said before, the majority of those organizations probably don't even know that they're exposed in that manner, and it's not that they know and they don't do anything about it. It's more the problem is probably even before they don't have a vulnerability management program, and they don't have the tooling and resources to have that visibility.
Maybe lack of awareness even.
Yeah.
And so for what I hear from you is that, from both of you, Kfir and Yotam, is that when you start early, it actually can affect the development. And sometimes even, I don't know, maybe even changes to the product itself. I mean, what do you think about it? Do you have some examples, or if you can share how things like that happen when you see someone coming with an idea or a business going in a specific direction, and maybe you have some changes to it?
Oh yeah, that happens all the time. You know, when you start developing, you have a certain step in the development, and you normally have more than one ways to go. So of course, you want to go the way that you like the best, and you think is the easiest way to go. But sometimes that way is blocked. So if you do your homework early, you know that at the time when you have to decide which way to go, then you'll take the way that is available. If you find out that you have this problem later on, when you have already developed it in the wrong way, then you have to go back to scratch and start developing again. That's a waste of time, money, and sometimes of the company itself.
Yeah, I would say from our perspective as a small startup, I think that's also something that we see that often is basically, I don't know if imposed is the word, but you're basically required to, in order to sell to large organizations or organizations that have to meet certain attestations or standards, such as HIPAA, SOC 2, etc., then you're required to answer questions regarding how you manage your processes and how you secure your data and IP. And so that's something that is basically, I think there is a lot more awareness now, and hence it becomes an integral part of the growth process of a startup. So at first, all you care about is basically validate your idea, that someone is willing to pay money for what you're trying to sell. But as you grow, it's inevitable to also start investing in those kind of processes and guardrails, and also it's required for you to continue to sell and grow as a business.
Yes, and we see one of the issues that we see is particularly in startups, where the people are invested in more than one way in what they're doing, and sometimes you show them that they have a problem and they are in denial. They don't want to listen because they are so much in love with what they're doing. The idea is great, it's wonderful, I agree, only it's not theirs, it belongs to somebody else. But they have to push forward. So, and sometimes they take the company to ruin because of that.
Okay.
I'm jumping in with a question that I received. I'm sorry, Hani. Kfir, it's actually for you, this question. You know, many companies, specifically in cybersecurity, they offer what we call open source. So if it's open source, does it mean that they don't protect their IP? Does it mean that they just provide all the information, which is very different than other industries? Can you say a few words about open source, and does it mean that we just provide all the information because the code is their IP, right? It's not something which is tangible.
There are different ways to go about putting out the software in that way. What you do very often, you just make a certain portion or a certain basic part of what you developed, you make it public to bring customers in, and then they have this, which is open source, and you can use it. By the way, open source is you need to take into account that it has conditions attached. It's not. It depends what the conditions are. Sometimes you cannot use that in commercial products. Sometimes you cannot use it in conjunction with something else. So when you take something which is labeled as open source, first of all, you need to look at it carefully and see what you're allowed, what you're not allowed to do. But even then, I would say the icing on the cake of the product you're developing is normally not open source. So you have this. That's very common, by the way. Not if you want to take a different field, it's not cybersecurity, but it's still software. All those platforms that are out there, like I don't know, Joomla, for instance, or platforms like that. They are open source, they're free, you can take it, you can install it. But then if you wanted to do some things, you need to buy add-ons, you need to buy all kinds of plugins. Otherwise, you have a wonderful thing, it is doing very basic stuff, and it's not useful. And people who put things out there in open source, as open source products, most of them, I mean, there may be some people who just want to make the world better and develop for free. Maybe a couple of them out there, but most people have this idea in mind. Okay, you take my software, which is good, which does a lot of very good things, but if you want to take it to the next level, then now start buying stuff. So that's a strategy that each company has to have its own strategy, what they want to do about it.
Thank you. Annie, back to you.
Thank you. So we also want to assist companies that want to expand in the US. And Kfir, I know many companies in such stages. And Yotam Resilience has raised a Series A like a year ago. And you have more and more activity in the US. So I'd be happy to hear both your perspective about that. Kfir, if you can share a little about IP management and if there are some specific needs for companies that want to expand to the US, and when should they start thinking about it and what exactly needs to be done. And Yotam, in your perspective, if you see companies in the US, if they have other needs, or if you need to take it differently, or take into consideration different things when you expand to a different territory, that would be great. So, Kfir.
Well, cyber security is a very, as I said at first, very complex field, and it also applies to where you go in the world. Because I see companies that say, oh, okay, the US is a big market, so I'm going to protect my IP only in the US. That may be a mistake. That may be a mistake because US companies will want to acquire your stuff, your software, or maybe your company. They have interest in other countries as well. So if you're not protecting Europe, you're not protecting Japan, you're not protecting China, the value of what you supply is much smaller than if you did. Of course, small startups cannot file patent applications all over the world. So we have an option. Israel joined a few years ago, joined the PCT agreement. PCT is Patent Cooperation Treaty, which allows us maintain our rights for 2.5 years from the day we filed the first patent application, and to file patent applications in other countries. Many startup companies take that option, and even though very often we file in the US earlier, we don't wait for the end of the 2.5 years to file in the US if we have something going on there or in other countries. Sometimes I know of cyber security companies that have big business in England, for instance. So they go ahead and file in England right away. And then they file a PCT application and have 2.5 more years. If your product is, if you don't know in 2.5 years if your product is valuable enough to spend money to protect its IP, then it's not valuable in this field, because 2.5 years is a very long time for cyber security companies, for software companies in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I agree. Not much to add here, but I agree with the point that I think organization or startups have to start thinking globally at an early stage today, because the world is more global, and people can reach out from various places in the world, and opportunities can present themselves. So I think, yeah, it's definitely worth keeping that in mind as early as possible, and prepare for that, for those possibilities.
I'd like to add something. There are two contrasting things here. And on the one hand, you want to protect your product in as many relevant countries as possible. On the other hand, you don't have all the money in the world.
Right.
So having a sensible, IP program for a specific part of your specific invention that has to do with your project, that's very important. And I see startup companies that filed one patent application, and then they made a decision, okay, I'm going to file this application in these countries. And then along comes the next application, and they go and file it in the same countries. And I ask, why? Oh, because we did this in the first one. Okay, but the first one had to do with something that was relevant to those countries. And what you're doing now is not relevant to those countries. It's relevant to different countries, or maybe to some of those countries. So you need to invest the time and the thought to plan ahead in a sensible way and not waste money, because startup companies wasting money is not a good way to go.
Definitely. We also
Unless you want to
see
go down the drain.
definitely, and this is, yeah, so we also see it also in the product design and market strategy. You need to think big, you need to be international, but you also need to be sensitive about your resources. And of course, I think each and every one of us just probably help startups, early stage startups, to better understand how to use the resources on in order to be able to scale internationally, but not lose everything while getting there. Thank you very much for this conversation. I enjoyed speaking with you a lot.
Likewise.
Thanks, Annie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Annie, for taking the lead on this conversation. I also want to thank Yotam for taking the time to join us and share a little bit of his experience at Rezilion. Also, I want to send a special thanks to Dr. Kfir Lutzato. If anyone has more questions on IP protection, I'm sure Kfir and his team will be happy to assist you. And with that, we are quickly moving to our next topic, which is not just your patents and protecting your IP, but also protecting data. And for that, I'm very happy to have Erez Luz with us. He's the CTO of MDClone. Hi, Erez. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on Zoom today.
Hi.
let's start with a short introduction about yourself and what is MDClone doing before we'll dive into the data protection.
Okay, so MDClone, so I'm Luz Erez. I'm physicist by academic background, but most of my life is involved in mathematics. And what MDClone is about is not protecting the actual data, is protecting privacy. And protecting privacy and data are not the same thing. It is a different layer. Usually when you speak about protecting privacy, this means that the data, someone got the data, but you want to deliver some kind of statistical aspects of this data without the ability to infringe on or breach the privacy of people that this data got into at first place. As a good example, data was given to Pfizer from Israel, and no one wants that his information will be revealed. The data was given in such a way that individuals can be reversed engineered. So Pfizer would not know anything about specific people, but it will get any type of information that needed to learn about this entire data set. So protecting privacy is a very complex thing, and this is what the core of the things that we in MDClone do. I'll start with giving some words about the company, our clients, and then I'll dive into privacy, just explaining what is privacy. Privacy is not so simple thing to understand, and I will make my best that in the end of this half hour, one thing the people that listen will see that it is not a simple thing. It's not something that is trivial to understand and see. So if it's okay with you, I will share my screen.
Of course, you can share your screen. I also want to remind our audience, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box, or you can send it to me privately if you feel more comfortable with that through chat. We would just dive into what is privacy, what MDClone is doing, and we'll talk a little bit about the US market, because this is what is of interest to us, to understand the differences and what MDClone is working in the US, and if you can also share some about your experience there. Erez, floor is yours. I'm going to mute myself unless you have some.
So my first slide, so do you see my slides, my screen? So when we start something, usually we start from Genesis, from Bereshit. So this is something from Genesis, and what we see in Genesis that once Adam and Eve eat from the forbidden fruit, the first thing they notice is that they are naked. So the thing that really defines them is the fact that they have a problem with privacy. They don't have a problem with hunger. They don't have a problem how to make a high salary in United States as a data scientist. They are interested in one small thing. They are naked and they have a privacy issue. So privacy is something that only human got. It is something that animals are walking naked, has no problem with privacy. And it is very hard to describe and even harder to define or to protect using standard mathematical tools. So it is not a trivial thing, although it is the beginning of the Bible. In the first chapter, you'll find it. So humans are involved in this issue for thousands of years, and still modern mathematics are really struggling here. So this is what we do. We have a system. We are a software company, and we sell our software. Our software company gather all medical information in for providers, providers in Israel. So it's hospitals, HMOs in Israel. We are installed in all the HMOs and big providers. And through a process of a long process, we enable everyone in the organization to ask clinical questions. A clinical question, for instance, is I want to know all the people that got deterioration with their lung disease, while they were on a beta blocker? This is a very complex question to ask. So people can ask these questions through our system. But our system has a very important layer that protects privacy. This means that you can get the answer without getting any information on the people that included in this cohort, in this group of people. And so this is a very complex thing to do, because usually when you get data about people, you get information about those people. So it's not easy to deliver such a thing. And we do so by delivering something that is unique. It's called synthetic data. So although other companies are in early stages, and we are the first and currently only companies that give the ability a live feed of synthetic data. And in a minute, I will explain what is synthetic data. Just to show, so this is some of our customers. So you see down, you see all the Israeli big companies install our software. It is a very, very heavy load. It uses a cluster of Hadoop in order to do it. And our software needs a lot of computers to work. But we work in the Canadian, in Canada. And I'll just stop with the three very important American bodies that work with us. One is NIH. All the COVID data in the United States is gathered through our system, and universities get access to this data. So without this, everyone that needs access to data, like university in Brigham and Women or Harvard even, they take a very, very influential information. If it wants to get some kind of data that relate to Utah, they will have to get an IRB, in Israel it's called a Helsinki, approval to use this data. And this is a very complex process, because they wouldn't have the right credential in order to do so. So the NIH, what they are doing is taking this data and using our synthetic engine in order to give access to those companies. The VA veterans, the US veterans is the biggest healthcare in the United States and one of the biggest in the world. And the VA, you cannot have any access to data inside the VA. So the VA have a big problem, because no one really can get data, and the profile of VA veterans is different from the normal population. For instance, they've got a lot of more males than females. So in order to do research, they can't use the regular PubMed information. They need to get some kind of other method to allow universities to work with their data. And again, they are using our system in order to expose their data to external bodies. So it's universities, research centers, and so on. So this is the profile of organizations that we work. We work with even with providers. Intermountain, for instance, is a provider. Jefferson is a provider. But all of those has dual use. One is internal for research, and second for operational and things like this, that they are using this system. In many cases, providers use our system in order to expose it to pharma companies, because pharma companies need to get access to data, and it is very hard for a pharma company to get IRB for real-world evidence research. So just from here, I'll just give some explanation about synthetic data, about privacy, and then so you'll be understand, and then show some use cases about how synthetic data works. So first of all, privacy means that I want to know something special or sensitive about someone. So special is very hard, because special for one person can be something for another, but sensitive is much more, because sensitive means that I care about a specific issue. So color of my hair can be not important if I live in California, so it's not really a privacy issue, but if I live in Afghanistan, this is a privacy issue. So it's very hard to define it. So we are stick with the hard thing of understanding what is special. So if you will see that there are two general privacy breaches. One privacy breach is that cohort to ident. This means I do not care who is the person. If I see a lot of people with ties and I want to advertise to someone that is a lawyer, I will pick someone with a tie. I do not care who is the specific person. But the much, much harder thing is to the other way. The other way, I know about someone, and if I know about someone, I need extra piece of information about this person. So, for instance, I want to know about a specific person if he is sick in specific disease. And this must be protected at all cost, because once a data engine exposed to such vulnerability, this means that you can get specific information on specific people, and you can easily destroy the trust that this really preserve privacy. So just for example, to explain the complexity of this, in order I give a simple example. Think on a village that have one high person, and many and rest of the people are on average. So this is the highest person. And this guy is called Shmulik, and his wife is called Yafa, and she wants to know something about him. She wants to know if he's been tested to HIV. So in order to do so, if she will get access to identify data, we'll have a big problem. But if we don't have, she can have something that probably she has, like an old blood test. If you have an old blood test, you have a lot of information about this person at a specific time, but not the information you need. So what can be done in order to protect privacy? Many people think that just if you will hash or remove the IDs, you protect privacy. But if Yafa got a combination of all this blood tests at a specific time, hashing the IDs will not help. It can be easily reversed by using a single blood test. Aggregation, you think that if you will group things, then you will say, let's say we will give Pfizer only the sum of things. If I'll go to the average height of all people that got an HIV test, I can easily see that the highest person is inside of it or not inside of it. It can be easily shown that aggregation does not really protect from privacy breach if you have the ability to ask multiple questions. By crossing them, you can easily overcome the fact that an engine will give you only an aggregated information. You can add noise, but again, if you have outliers, if you have special people, the adding noise will not really help. And then there are mechanisms that people have tested with not a lot of successful, like federated learning and so on. Those things really do not protect privacy in the end. So what can we do in order to do this? So first, we have to look at the regulation. So the regulation is very weak. So if you look in the United States, the regulation for PHI has two passes, one called extrovert determination. This means if you just remove identifiers like emails and so on, it should be okay. For this, most people know that this is not enough. Although the regulation allows you to say this is not a PHI, it is well known, and a lot of work has been done on this, that this will not really give privacy protection. The other way is safe harbor, and we pass this, expert determination. So expert determination means that you can give statistical proof that this data is protected. The European regulation, it's inside the GDPR, explains some of those passes, and one of the main passes is synthetic data. And I'll show in a minute. I'll explain what is synthetic data, so you'll get the grasp of it. Australia is very similar to United States, but they have similar rules like the HIPAA, and it has this passage of saying, if you can prove to me that the expert determination will it's not reversible, then you can release it to third-party data owners. So what is synthetic data and how synthetic data works? I'll start from a very simple explanation, and then I'll go a few steps. Let's say that I have two kids, one's 3 and one's 7. The average of them is 5. If the only thing that I'm interested is the average age, I can give you 2 other kids, both of them in the age of 5. The average will be the same, but you wouldn't be able to know anything about the original kids because there are 2 kids and only 1 result. So what happens if I want another type of information? Let's say the standard deviation. I can't do it only with 2 kids. 2 kids have got only one parameter. For this I need extra person. So this is for height, for instance. All those people have the average 5 and standard deviation 2. So you see, I can add more statistical information if I will add more people. If I have millions of people, I can give a lot of statistical information that you can do almost anything with this data set. Let's do something a bit more complex. This is a 2-dimensional. Aperture score is the score that gives data from a situation of ICU person and age. And when we do something like this, what we do, we're looking for patients or individuals that are similar, and we group them. Once we group them, we extract statistical information out of those groups. So here you see I have 8 statistical information that are relevant for the behavior of this group. And I reconstruct another group with the same statistical information. Because I have here 11 people, I can reconstruct many sets. And you can see that this set is not adding noise. This is something totally different. When we reconstruct this subset, then you preserve those data elements. And then this is the entire data set. So those are avatars. Those are new people that have the same type of information, but it is not reversible. You cannot take those people and get back to the original ones. So this is 100% protected because I can get many sets like this based on the fact that there are enough parameters. And when I'm doing this, the question will be arise, okay, those parameters are preserved, but what is other parameters? So you can take those group and do almost anything you would like with it. Any statistical analysis you would like with ANOVA, HIT-test, t-test, whatever you'd like, you'll get almost the same results. So this is how it's looking in multiple dimensions. So in multiple dimensions, you get set of avatars data with many parameters on them, but almost anything you will do with it, you will get the same result as the original. This is work they've done in WashU University in St. Louis. You see here that this is a pickup point for ambulances. And the synthetic data help them to find out where to put those ambulances. There was no ability to get access to this data as original data because this is highly private, where a specific person were picked up. But as you can see, you can easily conclude the same information of where to put your ambulances. And you see that because we can control the behavior of this data, we know that you see the synthetic data didn't create any person, any avatar that was picked up from the park or from the river. So you can get this data set. It is totally free. You can share it. There's no issue with security or privacy. And you can work with it, get the results. And usually people would like in the end to validate it with original data. This is a common process that people are doing with the system. This is just to show a very, very complicated problem. So this is a picture. A picture is an XY RGB, and it has pixels. If you will take this and just preserve the distribution of the RGB, you will get this picture. It is not very good, and you cannot understand this. This is Mama bear with her 2 cubs. But if you go through our system, you'll get this picture. So this picture almost totally recreates the original one, but the pixels are not there. They are totally different pixels. If you will zoom in on a very particular place, like the eye of the small bear, you will see this. a different combination has been created in order to set up the statistics. It is what is really needed, because think of it as people living on a small island. If there are not many people living on a small island, the statistical should be in such a way that you will not get any specific information about this island. But if you have a place where many people live, and this is like the back of the bear, you can see it is almost identically created. Think on a high building inside Manhattan, many people there. So the fact that I will give you the address, the exact address even, of this building wouldn't help you to sort out who is the person that got involved in this cohort of people. So this is what synthetic data is doing. It is looking for similar people and create avatars from them that represent the same statistics. So this is general thing. Usually I'm having another section about how this refers with differential privacy, but I wouldn't take you through this path so long. Question or anything like this, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Erez, for this really insightful presentation about data. As we are waiting maybe for questions from our audience, can you share a little bit? I know your role as the CTO in the company, but we are really interested to know a little bit more about the US market. I want to take a question, first of all, from Yotam. Yotam, can you
sure.
join us with a question?
Yeah, quick question. I'm actually interested in the differential privacy aspect, but maybe we can take it offline. I was wondering, because there are many forms to generate synthetic data for various algorithms, whether it's generative algorithms or simpler methods such as SMOTE, etc. But the way in which you generate the data can affect, if you then train a model on the synthetic data, the results can vary depending on the way you actually generated the synthetic data. So how do you handle that challenge? Or if it's only for statistical analysis purposes, it's not really of a challenge?
So first of all, many of the things are for basic statistics and usage. And yes, people are doing with our data training for algorithms, and we simply do a good job by the fact that when you compare the results with the synthetic data and the real data, usually people get very, very similar results. However, in any case, even if you trained it on synthetic data, we not only recommend, we give all the tools to rerun it on the actual data. But this has a process inside of it. So as good as you're becoming of creating synthetic data, the results are better. But in any case, even after your initial training, running it on actual data is needed, and this is a part of the offerings that we give. We give initial ability to run on synthetic data, and then without any need for any additional work, run the model on real data without the involvement of the people that are outside of the organization. So they just get the metrics back, of the correlation metrics back, so they know how good, how well the model run inside the organization. So it's a part of the product.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So I want to go back to my question about working with US clients and introducing your model, and how is it for an Israeli company approaching you? You mentioned, for example, the hospital in St. Louis and others around the US. What's their...
So first of all, you have to have a unique offering.
If you have any advice to some of our audience that are into the US market.
So first of all, you have to have a
Sorry?
unique. First of all, you have to have two things. One, you have to have a unique offering. If there is an alternative that is
course.
market inside the market, so many people tell me what to do this and this. But there are other products, and some people tell me this product sucks. I really don't like it. Maybe you will write a product that parallel to him. A company from Beersheba has no chance really to do so. This is one thing you have to know.
But we just learned about a company from Beersheba that is doing it.
It's very hard. Let's say, okay, it is very hard. It is very hard if you start with a competition from the United States that has some kind of predefined market that is already established there. So we are in the issue of giving access to data, and you know that small companies like Microsoft, Google are usually, when we come to bids or something like this, we see that the competition is from these huge companies. So we found out that this the ability to utilize in real life synthetic data is something that we can give and is not existing in the current market. And it is not the only thing that we are selling, because no one will just buy this. We are selling the entire capability for retrospective studies inside providers. So in order to understand, most of the providers in the United States, like I think 90%, do not have the muscle to do retrospective studies or studies at all. They are operational organization and so on. And many of them want to get into this field. So when you come to someone like this, you can't say, I just give you the technical solution. We give them the entire solution, how to create an innovation center based on retrospective study data. So when we come to Sheba, for instance, Sheba has ARC. It is this notion of this. And we come to Intermountain, or this is huge organization, but they don't have this muscle of doing research and so on. Say, okay, we are unique, yes, because of this you got to us, because one of the things in your tender was this ability. So because of this, you speak with us. But if I give you only this component, you need the whole car. You don't need only this plug. So it's very important to understand that when you give a solution, it's end-to-end, and you have this extra mandatory thing that without it, the organization cannot really succeed. So there are other solutions for retrospective studies. There are even open source ones and I2B2, and there are others, but they don't have this item. So I don't have to prove to everyone that our solution is better. It's not really relevant. I need a very small portion. United States and Canada are very big countries, that they need to put inside the tender the items that I am the only provider for them. So when NIH, for instance, in the early days of the COVID, put the tender for giving access, many companies got inside, but we got to the point we showed them the ability of synthetic data, so they put it on the tender. No one else could supply this. But there are other items on the tender, not the only supply synthetic data. So in the end, we and another company that we came into a consortium, Palantir, the other country, both of us won this tender. So you have to have two things basically. One is having something special that other people cannot do, and the other thing that when you go to someone is not buying technology. You need to give him a solution end to end, and you have to prove to him, and it's very important that he will realize that you are an expert in this field. So I really recommend that I know that there is this idea of setting salespeople, and the salespeople speak with someone and something will happen. I found out that I think that in all the cases, or most of the cases, in very early stages, you take the brightest people as sales engineers to the field in order to make sure that the client will feel that he has someone to work with. Because very fast today, people are techie today, and especially in our field, people are know how to ask questions. What type of data engine do you work? What type of security do you give, and so on, those questions. And if in front of them there is an American salesperson, he will give them very, very honest answers, but they will feel this is another one in a row of many people. If in the early stages of the meetings, you will take your best people, your chief engineer, your chief scientific officer, people that you really trust, and you show him that you have a unique solution. And when he's working with people, he's really working with the best people in the field. It's much easier that he will keep on those special items in the tenders and so on, that he will keen to the fact that he needs those, because you know that everyone can, if I'm coming as a provider to someone, and I don't have some of the items, and I'm a good friend with him, he may drop it from the offer, say, okay, let's live without this, let's live without this. But if I'm coming with something unique, and I'm convincing him this is the best thing, most important thing to stay in, this is the heart of the tender, this he will not put it out, and you have a very good chance, although you are far away and so on, to get it. The way that American companies, and I'm speaking about things like IBM and Microsoft, are working, usually their sales engineers are not the top tier ones. The development are the top tier one, and the development tier people are not getting to the field. And Israelis are much easier to send just anyone, pick up the phone to one of my engineers, say, what you are doing tomorrow? Say, I don't have anything on my calendar. You will be in New York or in Utah tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Then he's there, and he's the best person that I've got. So I'm putting my dice, my highest price in front. And I tell him the target, and usually the target is that the people will ask what we solely deliver. This is so he will convince them that what we solely deliver is the most important things to ask for. And once this is there, it's much easier to keep on. Just to send someone that you say, okay, he's a nice person. There are a lot of nice persons, and you know that. Niceness is the most important thing in America. So to be nice and avoid conflict is the most important thing in America. You probably know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you go there and say, yeah, I'm not only nice. Yes, I'm nice, and I eat hummus. That's nice, but I can give you something that no one else can give, and this is the most important thing in the world. So you need to have this thing in your hand. It's like an ace card that you can drop on the table in the beginning of the talk to say, okay, this is the technology that you must have. And then once he buys into this, then it's much easier to do the next step. Say, okay, my entire solution is good. Look at this and these clients, they are happy with my solution, and so on. But once he's into it, into the fact that he's a groupie of this, so it's much easier. And we found for our ACEs the ability to create industrial synthetic data. There are huge projects that are trying to do so in other places. Even Meta in the United States has a huge project called Cynthia that tries to create synthetic data. And our solution is much better than it's well known in the industry. So this is what I really recommend to have those things, and without them, it's very hard to compete with huge companies. We have Epic, we have Cerner, we have the huge companies. Don't go in the room and like a small startup say, I will beat those guys because I'm smarter. It's very hard.
Thank you so much, Erez, for your presentation. First of all, we learned a lot about data and privacy and how it is being done, and of course, all of your tips for Israeli companies that are looking into the US market in terms, even if, you know, as you just said, like communication, soft skills for your sales engineers, and how to penetrate and how to make sure that you highlight your unique, added value and unique solution compared to others, and make sure that it is being put into the tender, because I understand that helps to open some doors. I want to thank you again for spending the time with us. If anybody has any questions for Erez, we'll be happy to make connections afterwards. And with that, we are concluding our session for today. Thank you for those who stayed with us for the last hour and a half. If anybody has any follow-up questions, we will be happy to answer and connect you with our experts. This session was recorded and it is going to be available on the CICC YouTube channel. So I invite you to go back to the presentations, and if you have some things that you want to listen to again, or even send it to some of your peers. I want to thank to all of our speakers today. And of course, I would like to also thank to all of our sponsors that help us provide content, educational content and other content to the ecosystem. And with that, I'm concluding our session. Thank you so much, everyone. Stay tuned and we'll see you in our next event. Goodbye.
Thank you.